What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are going to continue our coverage over the X-of-Swords event, and this time we're going to cover the next 3 chapters of X-of-Swords, 14, 15, and of course chapter 16 as well. Maybe 17 if we can get to it, but these next 3 chapters are basically going to lead us right into the big battle between Arako and COPPA, what we have been basically working our way up to. Now, with all that being said, let's not forget what happened in our last video. Wolverine stabbed Saturnine. Now, the reason why he did that is because Wolverine feels like if he stabs Saturnine, everything ends. This whole war between Arako and COPPA will basically end. The X-Men can go back home and the day is saved. Like, this is Wolverine thinking if he's able to get rid of her, everything will be okay. But he is wrong. And matter of fact, as we get into today's video, you're going to have Saturnine actually show Wolverine what would happen if he actually does kill her. And so getting into chapter 14 of this crossover, Marauders number 15, we actually do pick up with Wolverine right now seeing what would happen to Earth if he had killed Saturnine. Because remember, when it comes to Saturnine, she made this competition, but she said this right here. If Arako wins, Arako has the right to basically go over to COPPA and Earth and conquer the entire planet. But if Arako lose, they have to go back to Armeth. And so right now, she's showing Wolverine what would happen to Earth if Arako wins. Because if they do win, the entire Earth is going to be wiped out. Nothing on Earth could possibly stop the army of Arako from actually winning. And so it's her saying, you better go ahead and sit back down. Because this right here could be the actual future of your world. Now, when they come back into the real world, you have Wolverine freaking out because Saturnine basically played with his mind. He never had stabbed her. He thought he stabbed her, but she read his mind and realized what he was going to do. And so that's why she showed him that dark possible future. If you stab me, this is what's going to happen. Your entire Earth wiped out by the children of Apocalypse and the army of Arako. Now, of course, you do have Wolverine actually sit down, but that is the moment you actually have Cypher take a piece of Wolverine's meal. Now, of course, when Cypher does that, Cypher has no idea the food was actually poison. And so when Cypher eats the food, it's too late when Wolverine realized, oh my gosh, my food been poisoned, and Cypher just took a bite. And so, of course, Cypher begins to start choking, and it does look like there is a possibility that he could die. Now, of course, you do have some members of the Arako side actually help the X-Men out by basically saving the life of Cypher before he does die. But of course, this shows Wolverine, he has to stay. But also it shows the X-Men, these guys, the Arako side, they're going to play dirty. And so if you want to win this war, you also have to play dirty. And so right now it's them saying we have to play dirty or also watch our backs very closely if we want to win this competition against Arako. And so, of course, you do have everyone sit back down and they continue to eat dinner. Because remember, right now, the competition is not happening. Instead, it's really more a Saturnine bringing everyone together to have them sit down and eat this last supper together. Because after this, the war begins. The big battle between both sides and the competition that Saturnine has made herself. And so right now, you have everyone continue to eat. And honestly, it's kind of cool because you get the chance to see these characters interact with one another in different ways. Kind of like, okay, so I know who you are, you know who I am. I don't know you, you don't know me. Like, they're actually learning about each other. And it's really cool to see this. And it's very innocent for now. But of course, we know after this supper, things are going to pop off. And when those things pop off, it is about to go down. Now, of course, after dinner is all done, you do have Saturnine say, okay, dinner is done. That's your last supper because tomorrow morning, things are going to pop off now. It's time to get the competition going. The whole Exosaurus things, yeah, it's about to happen right now. And so that is the moment she does pull 2 more cards. Now, when she does pull these 2 new cards, it's basically telling us as the readers who are going to fight against each other first. What is the first match? And so that is the moment we come to find out it is going to be Bessie Braddock, Captain Britain, and Iska, the Unbeaten. Now, this is going to be a very interesting fight for Betsy because Iska is the Unbeaten. That is her mutant ability. She cannot lose. But that is the first round. These 2 characters are going to fight against each other with their swords. Whoever wins, of course, gives a point to their side. And so we're going to see that battle in the next chapter. Now, getting into the next chapter, we actually pick up with chapter 15, which is Excalibur number 14. Now, with that being said, we actually do pick up with Psylocke contacting Jubilee. Now, Jubilee is not part of the whole war. Matter of fact, she's outside the Citadel, and right now she's with her baby. Now remember, Shogo is the son of Jubilee, but when they came into Otherworld, he was turned into a dragon because he's a child, and of course, his imagination just runs wild. And so it turned him into a dragon. Now, with that being said though, right now, Shogo is he's recovering from his earlier injuries in earlier books of Excalibur. Now, the reason why we pick up with Jubilee is because you have Psylocke actually contacting her through her mind and telling Jubilee that she wants her to know if something happens to her or she does not come back and contacts her, she needs to stay away from the Citadel. On top of that, do not go back home. Like, it's basically Psylocke warning Jubilee, listen, if I don't contact you, I'm probably had died. If I do die, just stay away from here and take care of Shogo. Now, of course, before Psylocke is able to explain things to Jubilee, that is the moment we see that Bessie Braddock is confronted by Iska the Unbeaten, her next opponent. Now, of course, the reason why Iska is here is to just make fun of the X-Men characters. But of course, she points out the X-Men only have 9. And that right there is very huge because they're supposed to be 10 champions, but the X-Men only have 9. And so to Iska, it basically means that it does seem like you guys might actually lose because you guys did not get all 10 of your swords. Now, with that being said though, you actually do have Psylocke kind of ignore that and say, okay, you know what? I'm ignoring that and I will continue to get ready for my battle against Iska the Unbeaten. And so we finally arrive at the first competition, Iska versus Bessie Braddock. Now, of course, this is going to be a very interesting fight. And it's not because of Bessie Braddock, because of Iska herself. Because remember, Iska's mutant ability is that she can't lose. Like, she never loses a battle. Nothing at all. She never loses in. And so it's kind of like, how can Bessie Braddock actually win this battle? Because she can't be beaten. And so, of course, you do have the fight actually begin. The swords. They use their swords to fight against one another. Now, again, you would think that Marvel would kind of like draw this battle out, give us like a few pages, but they don't. And the reason why, because they want to wrap this fight up, but to show you how messed up this fight is going to be for COPPA in future books. Because when it comes to Bessie Braddock, she loses. Iska wins. But when Iska does win, she literally turns Bessie Braddock into like glass and breaks her into a million pieces, and we're left to believe that now Bessie Braddock could possibly be dead. And that right there is huge. But of course, with Iska winning and Bessie being dead now, quotation marks, that means the first point actually goes over to Iska and Arakko. Now, of course, the X-Men are angry because they just watched their friend die. Their friend died right in front of their eyes, and they're wondering what in the world is going on. Because you have to remember, if someone dies here in Otherworld, they cannot be brought back to life. Because remember, even though the X-Men were able to build a process to bring someone back to life, thanks to the five mutants who have the ability to create clone bodies for you and then download your memories into that clone body. But even though the X-Men have that process, if you die in Otherworld, you come back corrupted. And of course, when you come back corrupted, you're not yourself. You're something else. And so the X-Men are afraid to bring anyone back to life if they do die in Otherworld. And Bessie Braddock just died in Otherworld. And the question is now, if we bring her back to life, will she be corrupted? Now again, we're left to believe that she did die. But in reality, do we actually know that? Now, with that being said, you have Saturn calm the X-Men down and say, listen, we do not have time for you guys to mourn. We have to move on to the next competition. And the next competition is actually going to be a wedding. Yes, you heard that right, a wedding. And the wedding is going to be between Cypher and Bay the Blood Moon. Now, when it comes to Cypher, he has the mutant ability to actually understand any kind of language across the universe, meaning that if someone walks up to him and speaks a language, he'll be able to actually understand what they are trying to tell him. Now, of course, he was also able to learn that when it comes to fighting and watching someone's movement, he's able to understand how that person fights, because movement is kind of like a language as well. Now, with all that being said, when it comes to Bay, the Blood Moon, she has a language that nobody can understand. And that right there is very huge. And the reason why? Because not even Cypher is able to actually understand what she is saying. That right there is crazy because, again, he has the mutant ability to be able to understand any language across the universe, but he can't understand Bay. And when he does meet her, he finds her intriguing, interesting, and this man falls in love so fast. He's all like, yo, she's kind of hot, y'all. She's amazing. I love her. Now, of course, you do have the wedding actually happen. And let me tell you, at first, it's kind of sweet and kind of funny to see because you have Cypher actually walk up very nervous because, again, this is somebody he can't actually understand. But for some strange reason, he's very attracted to her. And when it comes to Bay, she's also attracted to him. And so we actually see the wedding about to happen. And you have Apocalypse like, hey man, listen, I can actually understand what she said. Her vows, they're pretty good. So, you know what? You should go ahead and just say yes. Like, she cares for you, dude. We don't know why y'all fell in love so quickly, but she does. And she loves you and you love her. So let's go ahead and get this wedding going. But as the wedding is going on, that is the moment someone actually attacks the Citadel. And of course, it's Jubilee and Shogo. Because remember, when it came to earlier in this chapter, Bessie Braddock did contact Jubilee and told Jubilee, hey, listen, if something happens to me, you need to stay away from the Citadel, but to also protect Shogo. Now, of course, Jubilee did lose connection to Bessie Braddock, and so Jubilee was freaking out. She's kind of like, what happened to my best friend? Where is she right now? Where is she? Where can I find her? What happened to her? She has no idea that Bessie Braddock is technically dead at the moment. And so right now, she's having Shogo use his fire breath as a way to attack the Citadel. Now, that is a problem because it was stated earlier that when it comes to Shogo, his fire can actually break the reality in Otherworld. And so right now, they're kind of like, we need her to stop and tell her son to stop flying around spitting fire everywhere because his fire can break reality right now across Otherworld. And so you have Saturn let the wedding continue on, but you didn't have Saturn continue to use her magic on Shogo. Now this is very important. And the reason why, because you have Saturn being able to actually control the mind of Shogo. He's just a young boy. more like a toddler. And so, of course, with her using her magic on him, he's now under her control. And so it's kind of like pulling a son away from a mother. It's just hard to watch and see. But either way, though, you actually do have Saturn being able to control Shogo. Now, when she does that, Jubilee is very upset because she lost her best friend and now she's losing her child, her son. But you have Storm say, listen, do not worry. We're not going to let Saturn do any kind of harm to Shogo, but you need to stop because you almost ruined everything for everybody. Now, with all that being said, with the wedding actually being over, each side gets a point. Arako now has 2 points and Cocoa has 1 point. But Bay and Cypher, they're now married. And so we can move on to the next chapter. But getting into the next chapter, we actually do pick up with Wolverine number 7, chapter 16 of X of Swords. Now, this is the moment where we can basically say that this tournament is rigged, because you basically see how Saturn is trying to help Arako actually win the tournament. And what I mean by that is we pick up in the next round where you have Magic fighting against, and I love this character's name so much, Pog, who's kind of like this rock crocodile kind of creature we saw in the previous videos. But either way, though, Magic must fight against Pog. Now, of course, they think they are going to use their swords, and so they begin to fight with their swords. But that is the moment you have Saturn take their swords away and said instead of fighting with their swords, you have Saturn tell them, you are going to arm wrestle. Whoever wins the arm wrestling competition gets the point for their side. And of course, for Magic, it's not fair because look at Pog. This dude is just big, huge, and seems very strong. And of course, he actually does win. He wins the arm wrestling contest, which means that, of course, it's now 3 Arako and 1 for Cocoa. And so the next round will actually be against Wolverine versus the High Summoner. Now remember, the High Summoner is the grandson of Apocalypse. Now with that being said, this fight is to the death. But of course, Summoner and Wolverine are going to fight in a very unique kind of arena, where of course the arena continues to change to like different realities to make the fight more interesting. But while Wolverine and High Summoner are fighting against one another, and it does seem like maybe Wolverine could possibly lose this fight, but of course Wolverine does win, because Wolverine is a well-trained fighter with a sword or without a sword. And so he was able to actually win the competition against the High Summoner. And he was actually able to stab the High Summoner right in the eye, basically killing the High Summoner. So you would think that Wolverine would win, but no, he did not. Because Saturn said to win this round, you have to fight to your death. And of course, High Summoner died. Wolverine did not die. And so that means now 4 points for Arako, 1 point for Cocoa. Now, the next round is Wolverine and Storm actually drinking with one another, a drinking game. Now, of course, it's just Storm and Wolverine, which means that either way, Cocoa is going to get a free point. Arako will not. And so right now you have our 2 X-Men characters just go ahead and drinking left and right. Now, of course, for Wolverine, he has a healing factor, meaning that he'll be able to kind of withstand the ability of being drunk. But of course, Storm does not have that healing factor, so she has to be more careful. Now, of course, you have Wolverine realize that right now they're in the crooked market. And usually when it comes to the crooked market, you can get whatever you want, but of course it comes with a price. And so Wolverine's saying right now, of course they're drinking. Yes, they got a free point, but of course this all comes with a price. And so the X-Men have no idea before they arrived. Mad Jim Jasper, the owner of the Crooked Market, had met up with Death, one of the kids of Apocalypse, where of course Death gave Jasper some kind of scarab to put inside the drink of Wolverine. And so when Wolverine had one of his drinks, of course he drank the scarab. Now this is actually very important. But that is the moment you have Wolverine be teleported right in the middle of a battle that was going on between Solem and War. Now, this is actually very important. And the reason why, because when it came to Solem and Wolverine, they met in an earlier chapter where Wolverine got the Muramasa blade. But there were two Muramasa blades, but Solem gave Wolverine one. But Solem did tell Wolverine it comes with a price. And of course, that price is right now, where Solem is able to kind of have Wolverine replace him in a fight, meaning that Wolverine will fight for Solem against War. Now, here's the problem though. Right after Solem leaves, Solem tells War, oh, by the way, Wolverine killed your child, the High Summoner. And so War is angry. That was her child. And of course, now you have War wanting to kill Wolverine even more. And so they do basically fight, where of course, Wolverine technically does win the battle after a few pages. But here's the thing though. Even though Wolverine fought in that battle, he fought for Solem. And so technically, Solem won the war. Not Wolverine, Solem did. And so that is how messed up this tournament is. So now it's 5 points Araco, 2 points for Krakoa, or 3 points for Krakoa. But either way, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.